Thomas is a tank engine who lives at a big station on the island of Sodor. He's a cheeky little engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome.
If you've been a fan of Thomas the Tank Engine in the last few years, then you're probably aware of the less than stellar state of the fandom today. There are several reasons why this is the case, but undoubtedly one of the biggest contenders to this is Mattel's rebrand of Thomas and Friends into All Engines Go, or AEG for short. And today, I want to go a little bit into the history of All Engines Go and why it's such a hot topic in the Thomas community. Leading up to AEG's leaks and reveals, Thomas as a franchise had already been in some trouble for a few years. Amidst declining toy sales, Mattel wanted to revitalize the brand for a more global audience, which in their mind was having Thomas travel the world, making new friends along the way, and learning about the places he visited. This is now infamously known as the Big World, Big Adventures era of the series. Fans were unhappy, and several aspects of the show and toys were unsatisfactory to parents and kids alike. While the strategy could have worked wonders in bringing Thomas to an even greater audience, it was half-baked, poorly distributed, extremely surface level, and ultimately put the franchise in an even worse position than it had been before. Come 2020 and a global pandemic, the future of Thomas was looking uncertain as the release of a 25th season was up in the air. That was until fans were greeted with some very unsettling images and leaked footage of a very different looking style for Thomas. Along with the announcement that Mattel had entered a co-production partnership with Nelvana Studio, things were starting to become more clear. Thomas wasn't being rebranded, it was being rebooted.
Here comes Thomas!
Thomas and Friends All Engines Go was aired in late 2021 with a very poor reception from fans. Although the series is a separate entity from the original Thomas and Friends continuity, a considerable amount of people who had known Thomas until this point weren't exactly pleased. Many longtime fans of the show were very outraged and vocal about this shift for the franchise. However, over 3 years later, All Engines Go has continued to see enough success to be advertised and push out new merchandise, with characters old and new being introduced to the show. There are currently 4 series of the show, the last of which will begin airing this year. Now, I never bothered to watch All Engines Go myself when it came out, and while I initially would speak negatively of it, nowadays I just don't care about it at all. It's a situation where I'm unwilling to give it a fair shot, so I just ignore it. And heck, I was already pretty fed up with Big World, Big Adventures before All Engines Go was confirmed. What made Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends so special was how different it was to its competition when it came out. It was slower and simpler, with easy-to-grasp concepts in an easy-to-understand setting, being told by someone who was relaxed and calm, reading the stories in a gentler tone. It was the perfect visualization of the Railway series, and as the show evolved throughout the first 5 series of its run, people were drawn in by it. Thomas and the main characters were relatable to kids, but you also had other characters with unique traits that older siblings and parents could relate to. It was also very connected to real-life railway events, and all the characters were based on real-life locomotives. The stories themselves were pretty plausible for what real trains could do, with the occasional crazy story that bent the rules a little, still managing to be quite entertaining. The subject matter didn't talk down to kids, and the show was produced in such a way that it appealed to the kids it targeted, but could be enjoyed by anyone who gave it a chance. Fast forward back to All Engines Go, and it's clearly just not the same. Thomas and many of the quote-unquote younger characters are voiced by children, despite many of them being several decades to over 100 years old, going off their real-life counterparts. The world isn't as real because everything is a 2D animated cartoon with outlandish track design and a cartoony world for the cartoon characters to interact with. Mind you now, this isn't necessarily bad, it's just not the same, something that many fans seem to not understand the difference between. The largest reason many people in the Thomas fandom don't like All Engines Go is either because it just isn't the show they grew up with, or because it's popular to hate and trash on it. Now, if you've seen All Engines Go and genuinely dislike it, there's nothing wrong with that. It's also completely okay to enjoy All Engines Go and what it has to offer. But what I take issue with is people who have not seen the show and openly hate it just because it's not the show they want to see. If you've never seen All Engines Go, then why do you bother to waste your time complaining about it? What if you were to watch it and actually find it not so bad? What would you do then? At the end of the day, if you've seen All Engines Go and have an opinion based on that experience, then that's totally cool. If you haven't seen the show and don't have any strong opinions on it, that's valid too. But if you've never seen the show and avidly hate it, there's really 3 things you can do. Watch the show and see if your opinions are valid or not, cool off and stop caring about it that much, as I've done, or continue to live in ignorance and hold your opinions founded solely off the fact that All Engines Go is different from the original Thomas and Friends. The choice is all yours, and you are welcome to your opinions. If you've stuck around until this point, I really appreciate it. I hadn't planned for these talk style videos to come out so soon into the new year, but it seems like they can draw in a decent amount of views. So hey, why abandon something that could do well for me, right? And what better way to dive in than talking about one of the hottest topics in the fandom? At the end of the day, the goal of this video was to make my opinions on the series and a certain subset of its detractors known. Whether you agree or disagree with my opinions, that's totally up to you. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't be a stinker, and have a great day.